So we have Joey Swindle. He is a partner at Evangelist Agency, and Lauren Acton here, and she's the marketing director of TechFW and Cowtown Angels. They both have very vast backgrounds. They're going to get into that. It's going to be incredible. But they are branding and marketing experts, and we're excited to have them here. So Joey, Lauren, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Devin. Give me a sec here and I'm going to pull this up. Thanks for choosing to spend your afternoon with me and Joey. I really hope that this will be helpful. So to start out, I just wanted to talk about, does branding matter? So I think a lot of people's gut reaction is yes, but unfortunately more often than not, branding, especially with startups, gets put here on the back burner where it does not belong, in my opinion. Why does it often get put here? I think people often think that branding just equals aesthetic only. And people a lot of times think it's just about, if it's just about my website looking pretty, why would I invest money in that? But I think it's more than that. So I have a little quiz here for y'all. I'm going to show you 2 homepages, and if you could vote in the chat as to which business you would prefer doing business with. Here is option 1. Take it in, take a mental screenshot there. These are both law firms. So, and here is option 2. So, and Devin, let me know what the consensus is.
Okay, we got a bunch of 1s and 1, 2.
Okay. The reason I show you that is because, you know, it just took you a split second to decide which one you would prefer. And that just kind of shows like branding isn't just the aesthetic, it's about trust. And figuring out how to display that trust to someone within a matter of seconds. People do business with people they trust. So before I dive into some elements of brand identity, I want to go over some branding ground rules. Before I talk about what branding is, I want to talk about what branding isn't. And branding isn't a Band-Aid that you put over a bad business. It just can't fix your business. That's not what it's meant to do. So if you are, you know, this is where you kind of ask yourself, is this the right time for my business to do a rebrand? If your business is running smoothly, people are finding value in your products and services, your team is a well-oiled machine, then yes, I think it is time for you to consider a brand refresh or rebrand. So if you determine, yes, it's time, you will fall into one of these buckets. If you're a startup, you're going to be starting from scratch. You have nothing, so you're going to be in the brand creation bucket. And if you already exist, you're either going to be doing a brand refresh or a total overhaul rebrand. Essentially, with TechFW, our company, last year we did a brand refresh, and kind of going to talk about the differences between those and why you would do one over the other. And we chose to do a brand refresh because we felt that our services were really high quality. People were loving them, getting value from them, but we didn't feel like our brand really reflected what we had to offer. So we decided to kind of bring the brand up to where we already existed in terms of our identity and what we were delivering. That made sense for us in 2020. And I normally wouldn't advise this, but we are actually working on a total rebrand in 2021, which typically I wouldn't advise doing that in such a short period of time, but it makes sense for us because we are outgrowing our area and region. And so having Fort Worth in our name no longer makes sense. So for us, doing a total rebrand this year makes sense. So typically, if you're going to do a brand refresh or rebrand, you want it to coincide with something that's happening in your business, not to just do it for no reason. In doing so, you are going to decide if you're going to do the brand refresh yourself or if you're going to hire out. And typically I would say when in doubt, hire out, because if you're not in the branding space, I think for the most part, it takes time to develop a designer eye and things like that. Some people have it just naturally, but I think I would say don't trust yourself and trust someone else who has done it for a while. And, you know, if you're strapped for cash, you can find people at universities, you know, design students who are just wanting experience. Say if that's not your expertise, then find someone. If you're stubborn, which is fine because I'm stubborn too, then you can do it on your own. And, you know, if you're wanting to do it on your own, you totally can. You just have to study good design so that you know what you're working toward. So these are kind of, if you are going to do it on your own, these are some websites that I would recommend so that you can hone your design eye. These first three, Dribbble, Pinterest, and Allbirds, they have some really great just website layouts, different branding campaigns and things like that, that you can just scroll through and start to build that branding muscle and kind of see what good design is. Because when I first started out, the first things I created, when I look at them now, I'm like, those were awful. Like, how did I think they were good? But you just build that muscle over time. And then Typewolf is really great because you can see what fonts are trending, because fonts do trend. So please don't use Comic Sans. It is out if you didn't know. So that's really great because some people can think a font is great, but it's out. The last thing I would recommend is if you're doing it, roll it out all at once rather than in pieces, like a logo and then the website, because I think that will lose the full effect if you're not rolling out your rebrand all at once. So moving on to what is in a brand, I would kind of boil it down to one, attributes and values. Then you would go into your copy, messaging, and branding. And then you would focus on visuals in that order. So I really like this quote. Founders are good at explaining what their companies do, but not always what they are or who they are, I would always say. My kind of mentality when I'm going into it is pretend that your brand is a person with unique attributes, qualities, everything like that. Here's a good existential question for your business. Who are you? And Joey's going to go into this a little bit more later, but essentially you're going to want to do a deep dive, get introspective on who you are. And then once you determine that, you're going to want to figure out, well, do I like who I am? Do I want to build a brand based off that? Or do I want to change people's perceptions of who we are? We don't like who we are. And then if you're starting a company from scratch, you're just going to want to think about qualities that you're going to want to embody in your company since you don't yet exist. For Tech Fort Worth, this is kind of what we determined as our attributes as a company. We all sat down and kind of decided, like, what is the fiber of our being? Because, you know, it's not just my qualities, it's not just Devin's qualities, our history, who we were the past 20 years, and all these things, like what makes up who we are in terms of attributes if we were a person. Moving on, you're going to want to craft your mission and vision. I'm not going to go to examples on that, but essentially just a refresher, mission is what do you do right now? If you're a car mechanic, we fix cars in DFW. That's your mission. That's what you do. And then your vision is like, if all the stars aligned and everything you ever dreamed of for your company happens, what would that look like? So maybe a car mechanic would be like, I want to fix every car on earth so that they run smooth and everyone's happy, or something like that. Pie in the sky type situation. Then in terms of copy, you're really going to want to make sure it all sounds like it's coming from that same person. And that's really hard to carry out because when I write copy, I'm very bubbly, and like Tech Fort Worth isn't maybe as bubbly as Lauren Acton. So I had to tone it back and remember who is Tech Fort Worth. And that's why it's so important to always have those attributes to kind of go back and look at to remind yourself who your company is. Just a couple more things, and then Joey will pop on. I want to talk about name and visuals. Here is one of our clients. They came in as gamified screening solutions, and this was their logo and name. I kind of challenged them, and they let me, which was nice. And, we kind of went through this situation of, I think gamified screening solutions does describe what they do. So they are a software for screening applicants to remove bias, and they do it in a gamified way. That's who they are. That's what they do. But I said maybe that not necessarily needs to be the brand names. Normally with brand names, I say either choose something obsolete like Apple or something loosely related, but that doesn't explicitly describe what you do. I think that's a big mistake, especially with tech companies. They go straight to creating a name that describes exactly what they do, but that's not necessarily a brand name. This is something we also did with gamified screening solutions. So we went through some of their attributes here on the left. And then when you're kind of coming up with name options, you just want to open a Google Doc and put anything that comes to your brain, even if it's stupid, because it might spark that perfect name idea. That's what we did. And we looked at some competitors in their space to kind of figure out, okay, like we want it to look similar to that, but still stand out. And we went through color selections, and we decided since it was a gamified solution, we wanted it to be fun. So we wanted it to have some neon aspects, but we also wanted it to be traditional because it's business. And we wanted to go with blue because blue equals trust. Colors all have kind of different meanings. That's kind of what we went through with that. And then this is what we came up with. So they are now called Unbent, and they're an amazing startup, by the way. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Joey, and he is going to talk about brand positioning and archetypes and his process.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. That was, I think, the third time I've heard you go through that, and each time I get like another little nugget.
Oh, yay!
Thanks for that. I see my business partner, John, actually, the better half, as you will, of Evangelist is with us. So, hey, John.
You're very sweet to say that, Joey. But, I'm just here for you, man.
Typically, it's like the looks and the brains, but John got both of them on our team, and I just get to kind of tag along. But anyway, I'm totally going to call on John just like I do in meetings. I'm actually super thrilled that he's here because you're going to have to hear from him. Right on. Okay. Yeah, Lauren, thanks for that. Again, I think it really covered, the big why behind branding, really a lot of really great groundwork and really kind of rules to follow and disciplines to follow with branding. So I didn't want to kind of double down on the why, even though you guys, I think, probably mostly came here for that big picture take. But I want to talk a little bit about how brand positioning fits into that equation. A brand is really the encapsulation of everything that an organization is. But then the positioning is how we want the market to view this brand and this organization. And when we mean the market, we mean other human beings. So we want to carve out a place in their mind and in their thought process and really help them very clearly, very easily understand how we fit into their life and how we fit into their story. So wanted to touch on that a little bit and then really take y'all through the how. I think, as Lauren said, I think it's really helpful for a third party, especially obviously experts that do this all the time, to walk you through these processes and help you form your identity. However, we all know there are many different variables in decision-making processes for certainly a young organization. And so really everything that I'm going to talk about today, it's stuff that anyone can do internally. You don't have to be a designer. It really kind of takes you all the way up to that design portion. And I think it really helps not really, it should absolutely influence kind of everything you do as an organization, and then also how you develop that identity system, kind of putting pen to paper, if you would. And even if you don't have an organization, my family has kind of gone through this process. We're like, my wife and I were talking about who are we as a family? What is our mission? What is our North Star? And I was like, man, let's go through the brand discovery and storyboarding exercise. And so I think individuals, any entity that is in wants to make an impact. It's really, whether it's a single person or corporately, I think it's a really good exercise to walk through and help you understand who you are, how you're perceived, how you want to be perceived, and how you can really contribute. Okay, so this is our, going to talk through our just evangelist positioning and identity process. Just a little further definition of positioning. The official definition of positioning in the brand journal is the act of designing a company's offering and image to occupy a distinctive place in the mind of the target market. This describes how a brand is different from its competition and where or how it sits in its consumers' minds. I think the really important thing here is it's offering and image. It's not just image. The modern consumer is very wise and has a BS radar that's sky high. Brands that can't live their promise and brands that aren't executing their position and delivering on what they're promising to deliver and why they belong are more and more falling to the wayside. And brands that are delivering on those promises are growing and stealing market share left and right. What I love about this is just to be a good human being, you need to follow, you need to do what you say, and you need to fulfill your promises. So I love that the market's starting to reward people doing good things and punishing those who are not trying to bring proper value to the table. So how do we do this at Evangelist? Let's walk through really. I know I don't want to get super in the weeds here because I feel like I'll put you guys to sleep. And my personal goal anytime we talk. So and if there's a little bit of proprietary stuff in here, but for the most part, the process of branding and positioning, no one's reinventing the wheel. It's been refined over time. And so we've kind of stolen from here and there and put our own spin on it. We, once again, be happy for y'all to do some stealing as well. So what we'll do is talk through kind of the brand discovery process, how we work on positioning with our clients, and then kind of how we roll into the execution of a story and an identity system. First, we start with homework. Before our clients ever come to sit down at the table with us, we're going to go through a brand quality scale. This is really, it's super basic. It's really what is the vibe or the essence of the brand. Is it dark? Is it bright? Is it quiet? Is it loud? Is it economy, luxury? As Lauren said, we always encourage our clients to view this brand as a human being. And so we're really just kind of looking for adjectives that the consumers are using to describe the brand, and or B, how we want the brand to be perceived and how we want our consumers to be describing us. Secondly, we really want to uncover what is the brand's archetype. So this is an archetype is a collectively inherited unconscious idea or pattern of thought universally present in individual psyches. Now, John, I'm going to call on you in a second. There are 12 archetypes that were developed. So they were developed, was it Jung that developed these?
Yeah. So Carl Jung developed these in, I believe, the 1920s, 1930s, and they were dismissed pretty quickly as kind of bunk science in the world of psychology and sociology, but what people found is that they have a lot of utility in terms of business, because in terms of the way that businesses market themselves, when done right, they should be quite a bit more simple than the way that we present ourselves as a personality type. So despite the fact that they were kind of set aside by the community that they were intended for, they've really been latched onto by companies, by businesses, as a way to very easily categorize, okay, who are we? How do we need to communicate? And what Joey's going to get into as well, more importantly, what are we not?
And so you can see, I think it kind of starts connecting the dots when you see some of these brands against their archetype. Haagen-Dazs as a lover, Southwest as everyman, Patagonia as an explorer, Virgin, along with maybe Harley and Playboy, the ultimate kind of rebel brands. FedEx is the hero, it's there to serve. Rolex is the ruler, very aspirational. So won't continue to bore you guys there. There's plenty to learn about these online if you'd like to look it up. Just look up Google 12 brand archetypes. All right, so second, we want to uncover everything we can about the audience or potential target audience. Who are your best customers, or who do we believe will be the best customers as we launch this brand? What do your customers currently think about the brand? What do you want them to think about the brand? And most importantly, why should your customers believe those things about your brand?
Joey, can I throw in one thing? The thing that we always have to challenge clients with when we walk through this aspect of the process is that every business wants their audience to be everyone. If everyone could be a customer, that's what we would want. But the golden rule in terms of copy, and my role at Evangelist is as content strategy copywriter. If you speak to everyone, if you try and speak to everyone, you're actually speaking to no one, because nothing you're saying is specific or interesting. So there is a big challenge to really, when you think about audience, you'd love to talk to everyone, but you can't. So who is your best audience? Who are your best customers?
You cannot be afraid to alienate people. You should be very afraid if you're too afraid to alienate people, because your brand is going to go absolutely nowhere. You cannot be everything to everyone, or you truly are nothing to no one. I would just rather be pissing some people off and delighting others than just kind of be floating in the ether out there, not really mattering to anyone. Okay, so we also want to uncover everything we can about our competition. We want them to name 3 brands that they would consider to be in direct competition with. Something that is really hard for people is, what about these brands do you admire? What about your competition who you want to stomp? What do you really think that they're doing well? There's always something to find. Sometimes it takes a minute. But want to talk about what they admire in those brands, and then obviously what do they aim to do differently than those brands. At the end of the day, certainly my belief is every great company exists to solve a problem. Especially talking to tech people, that's something that really resonates. That's what you're doing here. You're creating technology to solve problems. To be honest, we get really tired. We don't get tired, but we have a hard time talking to founders or CEOs or whomever that started something just because they wanted to start something. They thought it would be neat, or they wanted just to run their own show, whatever. We have a hard time really developing those differentiators and really kind of being able to craft a story that is truly meaningful to an audience. At the end of the day, a brand story doesn't have a whole lot to do with the brand. It has everything to do with how the brand is serving the market that needed the brand to come along and carve that place in the market and develop something that was not there. And even if, look, we own a creative agency. Said 100 times, probably 1,000 times, John's probably smirking, the TechFW needed another creative agency like it needed another church. It did not need one. There's one on every corner. However, at the end of the day, there are plenty of us that we may not come up with some crazy new algorithm or tech or whatever, but we will see something that's maybe being done a certain way that we can't find elsewhere. And then, just like these churches, you kind of decide we're going to put a little bit of a spin on it, do it a little bit different. So anyway, at the end of the day, let's dig into our competition, be honest about what they're doing well, and then obviously let's really hammer into what we're going to do differently, what we are doing differently. This is kind of, storyboarding is our next step. So they do the homework, we review it, and then we go into our storyboarding process right after it. This is the same meeting. This is where this handsome guy named Joey puts cards on the wall using blue tape and index cards. So we developed this. We are evangelists and users of the Scrum production methodology, as certainly, once again, a lot of software developers and those types are very familiar with. And this is kind of developed out of road mapping, one of the exercises that we learned through learning Scrum. Man, this worked perfectly for really kind of crafting a brand story and helping kind of have a very clear, transparent meeting and throwing things up on the wall so that, typically in these meetings, every concerned party, every contributor is a part of this. I mean, it's typically our biggest meeting and decent sized meeting. So having everything up there out in the open on these cards and, taking them down and throwing them away as we need and move them around, it really gives you a lot of flexibility. So we go into the storyboarding. So what we uncovered here is we dive deeper into the brand qualities, the audience, and the competition, which we've already kind of had them covered in the homework. And we also go into message, which we're just kind of starting to spitball and throw around core messaging concepts. And 9 times out of 10, they're all wrapped around our differentiators. And then we go into inspiration and guidelines. We want to really hear about some brands and things out there that maybe are completely out of our client space that really float their boat and get them going. We hear a lot of Southwest, we hear a lot of Subarus and Apples, the brands that really just have inspired folks to want to do better and be better in the market. And then guidelines, these are very simple things like, what colors do y'all hate? Just very, very juvenile questions that kind of give us some boundaries as we start going into crafting messaging and design. So once we are done with the storyboarding process, we've got our homework done, we go back as a team and kind of put together our brand analysis. And this is actually what we deliver to our clients. So first, we're going to nail down their archetype. So we're going to make our primary selection. We've already had them basically give us kind of 3 that they think that they could be. And then we, very importantly, we have them tell us who are your antithesis archetypes, who absolutely are you not. And so we take those, nail them down to 1 archetype. And this is a little bit of a rule breaker, but typically just like humans, Lauren shared for example, our Enneagram types on LinkedIn. I'm an 8 with a 7 wing. She's a 3 with a 4 wing. It's kind of like this is your primary and this is kind of how you lean. So we also do throw in a nice little dash of a secondary archetype to kind of say, hey, you're a hero with a rebel leaning. Those types of things. We find that to be very valuable, and it influences messaging pretty heavily. So we always love to give great rationale behind everything we do, which John is the ultimate bloviator. So he is really great at helping our clients understand the decisions that we make. And I mean that lovingly. We talk about, we don't really go as far as, in this process, crafting target personas, but we do kind of go through leaving the storyboard with some kind of at least segments of audience. We nail down who that segment or that specific target is, what they care about, and to me, even most importantly, is how they identify. What is their worldview? Really, how do they view themselves? And that really helps us go, okay, what are their pain points as down to the human level? And how can we start delivering and solving those pain points, understanding who they are, and really let them know that we understand not only who they are, but also how they perceive themselves. I love this part. We talk about their competition. We assign archetypes to those 3 competitors that the client gives us. We go in and do research on them and really nail down their key messaging. This is really fun because we get to, it's always nice to sit up on your pedestal and like poke holes in what people are doing. We get to poke some holes, but we also get to, just like we make our clients do, we also get to explain what they are doing well and how they are maybe some messages that we really think are resonating with the audience. And then we've got, and then we want to talk about the competition, our competitors' differentiators. John, anything to add real quick?
The most interesting part of talking through competitor archetypes, messaging, and differentiators is really talking about how well they're defending their differentiators. You see a lot of people when they craft messaging, they think that putting your differentiators out there or saying that I'm the best for this reason is as good as saying that and then defending that. We have a rule that we talk about a lot in copywriting called the not if you have to say it rule, where if you in messaging have to come out and say, by the way, we are the best auto body shop in Fort Worth. If you have to say it, it's probably not true. It should be self-evident throughout all of your messaging, through the use of testimonials, through the use of talking about customer experience. So it's always very interesting to look at how competitors are messaging and presenting differentiators, because if they're leading with something and not defending it, it probably means that it isn't true and gives us an opportunity to do a better job of marketing that same differentiator by not coming out and saying it, but proving it.
Next step in the process is, the storyboard needs to be a very organic, off-the-cuff process. So we really don't try to clean it up a whole lot when we deliver it back to the client, but let's say slightly cleaned up digital version of the storyboard that we deliver. That we really encourage our clients to use this as a tool. This is something that you can grow. It can evolve. But we hope, typically our clients leave that storyboarding meeting going, man, this was awesome. I haven't thought about this stuff in so long, or if ever. They really seem to leave with even a lot more clarity on, kind of like Lauren, you said, like, we know what we do, but we don't really know how to talk about who we are. So they always leave that meeting really, really jazzed on that. And so once again, we encourage them to take that, use it, revisit it every quarter, review it with a team. And at that point, we have our brand analysis completed. And then we're going to go into crafting an identity system. And then in our brand standards guide that we deliver everything in, that's when we will deliver those core messaging concepts along with the visuals. So John, I would love for you to jump in on each of these clients real quick. I feel like you could actually blow through them quicker than I could. I'll give you a few different examples. John, do you have their archetypes in front of you?
No, but I know what they are. Conestoga Energy is a brand that has existed for about 10 years that came to us. They're out of Kansas. They relocated to North Texas. They're an energy company pioneering sustainable energy in the ethanol space. So everything that they do is innovative. It's with the goal of sustainability, but the idea of fulfilling sustainability without sacrificing profitability. So they fall into the innovator brand archetype, the creator brand archetype, which is the Dysons of the world. Their whole ethos, their differentiator is the ability to shake things up, to do things differently, to think differently, to use Apple's old tagline. But their secondary brand archetype is very important, and that is the caregiver. You see a lot of brands in the creator space that become very cold. Innovators tend to be cold, even when you think of the type of CEOs that lead innovative companies. But Conestoga talks a lot about how they are innovating, but they believe that they have this very strong social contract that they have to live up to being in the sustainable space. So they are innovating today to protect our tomorrow. So being able to ride the line of creator first and foremost, but with this caregiver heart, the Johnson & Johnson caregiver heart, informs what they do, and it sets them apart in an industry that innovation is kind of table stakes. So what are you doing? What informs that innovation? For them, it's empathy. And empathy in an innovative industry is very novel.
So we developed this identity system and helped Conestoga kind of reposition themselves in today's market. They really needed to a little bit of a reset as far as their not as a company, but their brand and how they were being perceived in the market. So we did this and then moved and we launched a website for them in December, I believe.
Yeah, so Full Circle Growers is a cannabis brand actually out of Oklahoma, which has legalized medical marijuana. So the cannabis space is interesting. It's really similar to what the craft beer space looked like 10, 12 years ago. Kind of Wild West. Everyone's trying to find different but non-stereotypical ways to market in this space. So for Full Circle, what they're going after is it has hints of the jester archetype, which is the humorous archetype, but that isn't the one that they lead with. The one that they lead with is the sage. And the sage archetype is all about expertise. What separates a sage from a hero is that a hero is predicated on the idea that I will run through a wall for my customers. Everyone thinks that they're that way. Not everyone is that way. A sage leads with expertise. It's the Yoda archetype. So they're trying to really raise the bar for agricultural standards, for transparency standards, for just business acumen standards in a space that's not dominated by people who are sound in agriculture, sound in business. So they lead with that sage. They lead with that trusted advisor role. But in this space, you have to balance that with something that is fun and edgy, and that's where the jester comes in. That means in brand messaging, every once in a while you swear. Every once in a while you make a joke. Every once in a while you use a pun. Things like that. So you balance this high level of acumen with a really smart sense of humor, and that's how a brand like Full Circle rides that line between sage and jester.
We just launched this brand recently and working on all kinds of things, website, packaging, merchandise, those types of things. Ironwood is a commercial landscaping group in Dallas. They really have, we kind of grew them up from a very kind of 90s brand. I think this was a passed down third generation brand. So I think the son who owns it now really wanted to kind of bring it into the modern age and do something cool with it. We always super love doing work in spaces that are supposed to be boring. It's really fun to go, how far can we push this while not jeopardizing the legitimacy of the brand and the company. And so with Ironwood, they're big outdoors people. I think you probably see a lot of like a Patagonia and Sendero, brands like that. We took a lot of inspiration from. And I think it ended up in a really cool system that we did some merchandise and things of that nature. And we're able to do some really cool stuff, but they still look and feel like a very legitimate, they're doing deals that are millions of dollars for hospitals and these big developments. So we still had to have something that felt polished and like it meant business. So I was quite happy with that. All right, John, you want to finish this off?
So Elgin is a brand in the hardware space that develops innovative pieces of technology that take things like the standard yellow foam earplugs that you put in your ears when you're working on a construction site, working in a factory, and they've combined that very old tool with modern technology of sound canceling earphones. So it looks like a traditional piece of construction tech, but in that is very sophisticated noise canceling Bluetooth audio. So it's this concept of incremental innovation is the thing that they're talking about. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel; they're trying to make the wheel better. So from a brand archetype standpoint, they had a brand that was trying really hard to look like a Home Depot brand, and then they ultimately decided that's not who we want to be. We want to appeal to makers, and we want to appeal to people who live and work every day in factories, on construction sites. So it ultimately landed on a script typeface that speaks to their, they have a hero brand. They're very much, they embody that run through a wall for our customers type of person. If their customer has a problem, they're going to find a way to solve it. And they're not going to mark it up to a crazy dollar amount. They have the best products of their kind on the market and the cheapest products of their kind on the market, which is rare. But we paired that hero, which can be a little bit kind of personality-less, with the everyman. The type of person that they're appealing to is someone who works with their hands. It's someone who doesn't want to be talked down to. It's someone who is proud of the fact that they work a job that is based on their physical expertise. So we wanted to embody that. So we leaned into brands, pulling inspiration from the mid-century executions of Ford's brand, of John Deere when it was still a signature as their typeface. Fender was another one. A very important point of demarcation from those brands was that we embodied a script that someone could actually sign. It's meant to be the signature of the artist, the signature of the creator, the signature of the everyman. So it's not ornate. It's not an ornate script. It is a relatable script. It can be anyone's signature, but we're putting our signature on our product. So that's how the hero and the everyman kind of came together and were executed in what is kind of a deceptively simple brand.
And that'll do it.
Wow, Joey, Lauren, John, thank you guys so much. I feel like I could listen to, going back and forth on what each brand, the archetypes of all of them. John, I'm glad you could call in today and be part of that